Holy shike, let's talk about pigs. Here's your host of the Pork Podcast, Jennifer Shike.
There's just something about the story behind the story. And as a storyteller, I'm always searching for ways to give readers just a little bit more. And that's what the Pork Podcast is all about, bringing you stories of the people and the progress of the pork industry. I'm Jennifer Shike. Let's go find just a little bit more. Well, there's no shortage of news coming out of our nation's capital today. The changes make my head spin, and I have great admiration for today's guest who can keep it all straight. But before I introduce you to her, I want to say a big thanks to AP for sponsoring this episode. Born and raised in California, Maria Zieba oversees the international affairs and domestic policy teams of the National Pork Producers Council, which is no easy job in today's volatile political climate. Every time we talk, I walk away inspired and educated, and know those of you listening will feel the same. It's my honor to welcome Maria to the Pork Podcast.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Well, your story is so incredible, and a really fun fact that people may not know about you is that your first language is Spanish, and you didn't start learning English until kindergarten. Tell us a little bit about where everything started for you, a little bit about your childhood, and how your passion for agriculture started.
Yeah, so I grew up, I think most people assume that I grew up internationally. I actually have spent more time in California, and that's where I was born. But my family is from Argentina and Paraguay. My parents, my mom grew up on a farm in Argentina, raising cattle, cotton, sorghum. And I would spend summers going down to Argentina to get away from the city. And I would spend a lot of time on the family farm, on the homestead that we had. And so that was a little bit of how things started for me in agriculture. I always had a passion for the international side of things, just because I grew up in this very multicultural world, and in a very multicultural area of the United States, which is outside of Los Angeles. I think most people don't realize that I'm from such a big city, but it's been wonderful to really get into more of the ag space and represent and work for producers. I came out to Washington, D.C. as an intern. I was an intern for the Farm Service Agency. I had done a few internships in California with members of Congress, with an environmental agency. And when I came out to DC, I had, big starry eyes of working on policy issues. And that's what I started on at the USDA's Farm Service Agency. And then I was very lucky to get an amazing job at the U.S. Department of Agriculture in the Foreign Agricultural Service. And I was in the civil service, the time being that I worked here in Washington, D.C., but I managed a lot of a few programs internationally, so I got to travel a little bit with those. Then I've had some very amazing opportunities to travel, but also very great opportunities to get to know more producers. And I worked for the dairy industry for a little bit, and I've just celebrated this year my 10-year anniversary with the National Pork Producers Council. I'm very, very happy to be here to represent this industry and such amazing people throughout the country.
Well, it's such an interesting journey. It's always fun to hear how people find their way into agriculture. What was it about policy that intrigued you so much? How did you get excited about policy?
Yeah, so in the area that I grew up in, it wasn't a common job. I didn't know that these jobs existed. It wasn't until I moved out to DC that I realized that when you're working out here, a lot of the younger staff are the ones that are creating the policy and writing the laws and then implementing them through the administration process and beyond. And so that was really interesting to me to see firsthand and get that experience firsthand through my various jobs and volunteer positions and things like that. So I've always enjoyed on the food and agriculture space. I grew up in an area of California with, at the time, some food security issues and not a lot of income, and a lot of people struggling with their incomes. And so I think it's been very important to me to be in an industry that provides very safe, nutritious, and healthy products to people here in the United States and also internationally. I think that that's what leads me to continue on this type of work is I think everybody should have access to affordable food, and that's what drives me.
Cool. Well, it's really interesting. And I do agree that sometimes I think it's hard when you're young. You may hear a word like policy, but it's like, how do you put that into practice? What does that really look like in a job? So it seems like internships are really a great opportunity to kind of get your feet wet and try new things. And you obviously had some really exciting internships. What do you think is one of the best lessons that you learned through those internship experiences?
The one thing that I love about internships is that you can do something wrong and learn from it, and you can have really great mentors. I have learned more from mistakes than from accomplishments, and so from that, it's always great to do something very well the first time. And I'm a very type A person, and can be very perfectionist at sometimes. And so it was great to be an intern because there was no pressure. And whenever we have interns come through or young people, I would say, I know you want to get out there and you want to go and work really quickly and settle in, but enjoy the time, the learning experience of having an internship and being able to grow. Don't grow up too quickly, I guess, is really the philosophy.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. Well, I know that it is a really busy time for you guys right now, and so I appreciate you making time to be on here. There's so many issues. What is the biggest issue that's on your mind right now? What is getting a lot of your attention?
Well, there's several. Trade is at the top. There's just a lot of uncertainty for our producers in key markets, and with tariffs, with product not going through, and that's caused a lot of work over the last few months is to just try to wrap our heads around all these new tariff announcements and the ongoing negotiations that are happening. I'd say that Prop 12, also the uncertainty on that, and us needing a fix, and what that pathway forward looks like. And then labor is something that our industry and all of agriculture has struggled with for decades. And it's so important to be able to have a reliable source of labor. And when we are working towards policy issues that would affect those three buckets, I think it's the number one priority is how do you have economic sustainability? How do you keep your farms going? But most importantly, what are the various things that you can do to accomplish those? So the removal of uncertainty is the most important part, just because farmers face a lot of uncertainty in their businesses, and they don't need policy issues being part of that calculus.
So when it comes to trade, there's obviously so many things that are out of anyone's control. Farmers can't control it. Too bad you can't control it, right? But what are some things that you are trying to do? What is MPPC working on in the area of trade to help alleviate some of the uncertainty producers face?
Well, our biggest market access request to the administration right now is on Vietnam and market access into Vietnam. We see a huge potential for U.S. pork in Vietnam. Unfortunately, we haven't been exporting a lot. That has to do with several factors. One, we don't have, we have to pay tariffs of at least 10% into that market while our competitors are at zero. We don't have full market access, especially for those offals, white offals, is that as they call it. And that has hurt us because there aren't many markets out there that will take those types of products and help supplement what we are seeing in the product dynamics between our exports to China, for example. And that's been our number one priority. We have submitted comments to the U.S. Trade Representative, met with members of Congress, their staff on our priorities. We just need certainty and have new markets opened for our producers. The other way that we are able to do that, or MPPC is able to do that, and me specifically, is I've been very lucky to have been appointed for a second term as a cleared advisor for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And that means that I have to maintain a security clearance with the U.S. government, but it means that I can be in the room and I get calls from the U.S. government on market access requests. And I have the ear of the negotiators. I've traveled with the negotiators for various rounds of negotiations throughout the world. And so that's very important to have that voice and for them to listen, whether it's the U.S. Trade Representative, USDA, the White House. We know that they are aware of the concerns affecting the U.S. pork industry and the issues that we want addressed, but also where we see the market opportunities for U.S. pork internationally.
Well, what an incredible opportunity that is for us in the pork industry to have you, and just thank you for doing that. How do you find your way into a position like that? What is that process like? And I guess, how would you describe that experience of getting to be able to be in the room and do that?
Well, I have to be nominated by MPPC and the secretary. It's an interesting application process. It was actually kind of funny because Brian walked into my office as I was updating my resume and my cover letter, and he thought I was looking for other jobs, but instead it was just for my appointment for the ATAC. So that made for a very interesting conversation. But it comes up for every few years, and we are part of the Animal and Animal Products ATAC. So there can only be one representative from MPPC in that. And then we also have one other person on APAC, which is the Ag Policy Advisory Committee. And that's a producer that we have on that board. So it's great to have the access because we can have those conversations and to make comments and know that we're rising to the top when we do talk and have that engagement.
Awesome. Well, I have to ask about the Farm Bill. It's just part of every conversation I have with anybody at MPPC. But talk to me about the latest on the Farm Bill. Are we seeing any movement? What are some of your thoughts about the timeline or things that we should be doing to kind of help with this process as producers and industry?
I think it's very important for producers, farmers to talk about the need to have a farm bill passed this year, a comprehensive farm bill that addresses all the needs of all of agriculture. There's, we really wanted to get this done last year. This year, the timing is, there's no other word. It's squishy. There's uncertainty. If that's the word of the month, perhaps it's uncertainty, or of the year. And we've been having conversations with members, with committee, with the chairman, ranking member on all, NBBC's priorities and what we need to see out of a farm bill. But, obviously it is a negotiation, and hopefully we can start seeing some movement here in the next few months.
During our latest State of the Pork Industry report, one of the guests on the report, Randy Keeker, shared that he was recently at the LAC fly-in, and he said Proposition 12 was still a really big discussion. So from your perspective and your unique vantage point, what do you think is the best solution to Prop 12, and what do you think we can hope for moving forward as a pork industry?
We need to have a framework and a regulation that prevents the states from having and developing a patchwork of regulations across the 50 states. It is impossible for a producer, a pork producer, or anyone else in agriculture to market their product if they have 50 different regulations on the book. And that creates uncertainty in the marketplace. It also creates that food insecurity that I care so much about. And it's very important to be able to have a fix on Prop 12, because what we will start seeing is various states developing their own Prop 12 style regulation. And pretty soon, it's going to have such a negative effect, not only on the pork side, but beyond, because we will see this overreach. And that's why we've been pushing during our legislative fly-in and with our meetings with various cabinet members and administration officials, the need to bring Prop 12 forward and talk about it and have a solution for our producers and eliminate that one piece of uncertainty that still hangs over us.
Well, I assume with all of your connections in California that you've probably had some interesting insights on how this really looks for people. I've had some conversations with restaurant owners, with families, with pork producers in California, and it really is a challenge for them. Can you put any humanity on that? I mean, I think it's easy to be like, here's the rule, but how is this really impacting people?
Yeah, well, we've seen how the price of pork in California has increased 20% in certain cuts, and that's certainly affecting consumers in California, especially minority consumers, whether they're in the Hispanic community or in the Asian American community. And that's disproportionately just because they consume so much pork in California. But it also has broader implications, where I've talked to farmers in Mexico who have lost market access into California, into that Mexican consumers market, where they can't comply with Prop 12. It's too cumbersome. It costs too much money, and they've lost out on that. So it creates it creates issues for us internationally as well. Most of my friends in California have noticed the price increase, certain prices increase on pork and pork products. They say, well, we don't know who voted for this. It's really important to know that the voter turnout wasn't that great during that election, and the California proposition system, which I studied at length and was a registered voter in California and I voted in it. It makes it very easy to get on the ballot. And when you get a book that's about this thick of all of the ballots that are being up for discussion, most people don't read through that. it makes it very confusing and very easy to vote for something that is more complex, like California Prop 12 was. And so that's a real issue for us in the future as well, because we could see similar types of measures come through outside of California, but in California as well.
Yeah, that's been eye-opening for me to think about and just to listen to people like yourself talk about how that happened, and then to just realize like I have such a great responsibility to make sure I'm more informed when I vote, because just even locally there's things at times where you're like, oh, I don't know if I know enough about that. And so it's a challenge to all of us to just stay engaged, and particularly to try
Yeah,
to kind of spread that word to others, I guess, because how tricky.
yeah,
So,
it's very
you know,
difficult.
I know that you have talked a lot about the challenges with labor, and you brought that up earlier. It's something that's on everybody's mind still. I think that I've heard a little bit of good news. It seemed like at some of the meetings this winter that, there's been some improvements in the areas of TN visa approvals, but obviously I know there's such a great need. What are MPPC's priorities in this area? What's some of the movement that you're seeing when it comes to labor right now?
We're very happy that we have moved a bit forward on the TN visa issue. Many companies went from, as everybody is aware, 90% approval rate before, and then to 90% denial. And over the last few months, we've been able to get back into positive numbers of approval. That wasn't something that happened overnight. We had to engage a lot with the Department of State, with with Congress, and with the overall administration on what was happening. And I was very lucky to have been able to host on the National Family Farms 4 individuals from the State Department, where we showed them exactly what these TN visa workers do. And it was great to be there because, when is it not nice to be on a hog farm? But beyond that, it was great to be there specifically for me because they have a very similar background that I do. They didn't grow up on a farm. And so we had a lot of really funny interactions where they would ask me questions and I would be able to answer them, and also make things and put things into a language that they would understand. And I kind of became a translator of not only Spanish into English for the workers and the State Department officials, but then also the jargon and the lingo between U.S. agriculture and then a policy person from DC, and vice versa, because we use our own very distinct language and dialects when we're talking about our issues. So the TN visa issue, I'm very happy. We worked as a team really closely with them, but also with the states and members of Congress who really went to bat for us. And it was really amazing to see everybody work together and actually have a solution on a problem that was what seemed to be insurmountable at the time. So we've been very, very, very happy about that. Overall, we still struggle with labor. We have one issue that has quieted down, but the bigger issue that we have as a group, individuals and producers, is that we don't have access to year-round labor. That is not a category that exists for livestock. And the H-2A visas, the seasonality visas, they're great, but they're just that. They're seasonality. They're for different types of agriculture. And we need something that is going to help address the ongoing issues that we face on farm, which is access to a steady flow of workers that can come and work year round on farms. And that's what we've been pushing Congress for years. And we're going to continue to do that because this is not only what is benefits our producers and our farm economy, but it also is what helps the broader U.S. economy thrive and consumers have access to affordable and healthy and nutritious pork and pork products.
We will be right back after this message from our sponsor.
Want to optimize your barns and improve your pork production? Subscribe to AP Connect to turn your smartphone into a barn window to save time and work smarter for better performance. With AP Connect's updated API, you can share real-time barn data from your existing controllers with trusted partners like your veterinarian or swine management software. This means sharing critical insights such as temperature, humidity, pressure, run times, and feed consumption in real time. Plus, add remote monitoring and check your barns from anywhere, right from your phone, tablet, or computer. This helps you make faster decisions, spot trends, and adjust quickly before small issues become big problems. Work smarter, giving your vet and team the data they need to keep pigs healthy. And simplify data management, eliminating guesswork and bringing confidence to every decision. Talk to your AP dealer to see how easy and affordable it is to unlock the next level of barn connectivity. Or visit automatedproduction.com to check your controller compatibility.
Well, you brought up something that I found interesting. I was just reading a story yesterday, too. I mean, just being able to, you said language, and it said, like, is there 6 different ways to say piglet, maybe in Spanish or something like that? And, I've been to Brazil a couple times now, and we have a lot of great friends there, but I know real basic Spanish. I mean, real basic. We're not going to get into any kind of a conversation about that on here because I would not survive very well. But to just the different dialects and how different Portuguese is, I mean, it's just, I'm so fascinated by the language differences and your colleagues. So every time I do one of these podcasts, one of my favorite things to do is to reach out to somebody else, a couple people who know you, and find out a little bit about you and, kind of what's the real story behind the story. And Cole Spain, who is the manager of international affairs, he shared that on a trade committee trip to Brazil, early on in the trip, the group was split into 2 groups and they only had one translator at the time. And so he said, Maria just stepped in and she utilized the Portuguese she learned while studying abroad in Brazil to kind of help everybody out in a pinch. And he went on to say that her ability to pick up on the language, along with being fluent in Spanish, is a major benefit to the industry when she is traveling and representing the pork industry. Being able to connect with individuals, possibly in their native language, goes a long way in gaining respect. And so as you've shared your story today and talked about what you do, this comes up over and over again. And I hear you're fluent in 3 languages. So talk to us about why is that so important? As a mom, I'm telling my kids, make sure you do all the Spanish that you can do because it could have other value. And our world is increasingly becoming more multicultural. So that's an important thing. But talk about in practicality how it has served you and helped you really connect with people.
Yeah, well, I'm very touched by what Cole said. I never told people that I spoke Portuguese because I thought I'd forgotten it all, but it all came back. I too struggled with my child to get him to speak Spanish and speak in Spanish to us and to our family. It's very important to me and my husband to also speak Spanish, and that we have this exposure to as many cultures and languages as possible for him, for ourselves. I think it's not just about being able to communicate for us. It's about being able to understand different perspectives. And you're able to really understand and see that when you are talking to somebody in their native language. That makes a big difference. When, this week I was at the Mexican embassy and we carried on our conversations in Spanish, and it was very beneficial for them because their English wasn't great for the officials I was meeting with. And so I think that that's a huge benefit. I encourage everybody to learn a foreign language. I think it opens up your vocabulary. It opens up your world to something beyond where you might, your comfort zone. And so I've study abroad programs I think are so important as well. I not all experiences are great, but in the long run, they're great. So sometimes that homesickness is hard, but it's good to step out, be a little bit uncomfortable. It's usually when you're uncomfortable is that you're doing something new and you're experimenting, and it's where you have the most growth.
I couldn't agree more. And it's hard when you're in it. And it's sometimes I think it's hard as a parent to watch when your kid's in that uncomfortable place too. But I have to remind myself, like, man, that's where you grow and that's where you learn so much about yourself. Your colleague, Megan Klein, who serves as the director of policy communications for MPPC, said that no matter what situation you're in, you're always, you appear that you're comfortable. Whether or not you are, you appear that you're comfortable. And she says, Maria is so good at what she does because she communicates clearly and effectively, no matter who she speaks to. But she also remains calm, maintains her composure, and she just doesn't get flustered in any situation. So I would think that in your role, this is a very, very important asset that you bring to the team to be able to maintain your composure in any situation. How do you think that has helped you face what some might call one of the most challenging periods in the pork industry?
That's very sweet of her to say that. It's difficult. It's a difficult time for everybody. The calls that I get, the emails that I get from producers, the text messages, they're very encouraging. But they also tell me what's happening in their lives. And they're coming to me because they need a steady hand. They need somebody that is going to listen, is going to understand their point of view, and going to be the advocate and lead a team that advocates on their behalf. If you're flustered, it's hard to, as the leader of this team, if you are flustered, then that nervous energy comes out with your team, and sometimes you just gotta fake it till you make it. And I'm glad that people don't think I get flustered. It does happen. It's but after so many years, it's been great. And it's also easier when you have a passion for something, and when you have passionate producers. There is nothing quite like representing the farmer and people who wake up very early in the day and before 9 o'clock in the morning, they've been working for hours and hours and hours, back-breaking work. And there's nothing that provides more of that drive than to know that people, that's what their livelihoods are, and that's what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And they're depending on people who understand that, but also who are going to have their best interests in hand and be able to communicate to others that are different than themselves.
I can absolutely relate to that. And I've never thought about it that way, though, that sometimes that your passion kind of helps you cover up any of the nervousness that you feel underneath, or kind of helps feel, kind of smooths over any cracks, I guess, because I definitely think your passion exudes in what you do, and it's easy to see how excited you get about it. Another thing I think that we share in common that I was going to bring up is that we both get pretty excited about our families. And I don't know about you, but I find that my kids are constantly teaching me and inspiring me. We've had a kind of a heck of a week lately around our house, and I'm just reminded that so much of why I do what I do is because I want to be able to lead and be an example to my children. And so let's talk about what that means for you. How has motherhood changed you? How does it inspire you in what you do every day for the pork industry?
Well, it's about, the next generation, and making sure that when he grows up, he is in a world where he can have the freedom to eat whatever he wants to eat, have the freedom to go to a grocery store and have those products available when needed, and that there isn't. I grew up I grew up and I didn't have a lot. There were definitely some struggles throughout the years, and part of what drives me is I don't want my child to go through the same sort of struggles that I went through. Part of that was learning a completely new language, being immersed in kindergarten and not understanding anything that the other children were saying. That's quite difficult. But beyond that, it's about exposing them to as many different things as possible. And I think if motherhood has taught me anything, it's patience. Not everything happens quickly. And especially on the policy side, not everything happens quickly. Your child can't learn everything quickly. And so you've got to take a breath and step back from the situation at times, and then just say, okay, what can I accomplish today? What is it that I can do right now and today? And this is a bigger problem, but what is it that I can do today? What is it that I can teach him today? What is it that I can show up for today? And that's something that I've tried to really push on and be better at.
Yeah, you certainly can't skip over the hard stuff in parenting. You can't skip over the hard stuff in the world, in your job. It's a lot of little moments that add up to a lot. And I think about that a lot. Like sometimes it's like, can we have anything else crazy go on this week in our lives? But you know what? Like you get through it, you get to the other side, just like you get to the other side of the issues and the battles that we face in our careers and our jobs and what we do. And you're better because you went through the battle, I guess. And
the answer is yes, you can. I could have my toilet flood on Tuesday at 10 p.m. That's more can happen. Let me tell you, Jennifer.
Maybe don't ask that question. That's for sure. Oh, it's fun. It's fun. Parenting is fun, and it's certainly a journey for sure. I wanted to also ask you too. I know your job consists of a lot of different moving parts all the time. How do you think that you have grown as a person because of what you do at MPPC? How has being immersed in the pork industry, immersed in the environment there, grown you as a person?
It's been such a rewarding job for me, and the passion that producers have is, I think, contagious. That's what is something that I've learned, and I'm very thankful that I've had this opportunity. I'm very different than I have a very different background than most people in the industry, and so it's been amazing to be able to be given that opportunity. The things that I have learned, aside from patience and perseverance and never giving up, and you gotta go in and ask for everything and keep going and knowing where when you have leverage and when you don't. Those are things that I've broader pictures that I've learned. But I came into this industry, I didn't know anything about the hog side. And that was a learning and I continue to learn. There's so many different things that I, I didn't grow up in a traditional household where I was exposed to, the difference between a piglet and a wiener pig, and that was not dinner time conversation. Just yeah. So that's been, that had been one of the big learning curve for me, but it also does give an advantage because I'm able to recognize the terms and terminology that the industry uses on a day-to-day basis that is so foreign to others that then I say, okay, well, this is what they mean when they say that. And so again, I become that translator of sorts between the two worlds. 1% less than 1% of the U.S. population is on farming today, and most people don't know where their food comes from. They don't know where bacon comes from. They don't know. When I was at USDA, I did some volunteer work where I went to DC inner city and teaching children about food and where their food comes from. And I remember being in this classroom with, I think it was like second graders, and I showed them a picture, and I said, what is this? What is this that I'm showing you? And they said it was a piece of lettuce. Well, it was garlic. They didn't know the difference between garlic and lettuce. They didn't know the difference between an onion and a tomato, or like very things that I think we all take for granted. Well, of course everybody knows that, but if you've not been exposed to it, and that's not been part of your, your upbringing, it's very eye-opening. So you have to also give people grace, for the things that they might not know and the perspectives that they may have, which may be 100% different than yours, but our differences are what make us unique. But we also have to give people grace because it's great to have a different background, and it's been a very great learning experience for me.
I think that's so well said. I can think of lots of stories, but I'm not going to let myself get into sharing them out loud, where I just took it for granted that people understood the terminology I was using, or that it was okay to use words that I was using in an environment where maybe I didn't need to talk about that. So, it does remind me. And I think I'm so focused a lot on the written word and how much, importance people place into the words that we use and the things that we say. And so that makes me a little more sensitive to the jargon and how do we talk it away that's just really understandable. So I think that's a great lesson, but it's a great reminder to all of us to be seeking out other perspectives. I think it's so easy to kind of get in your lane and to stay there.
Yeah. Well, you grow, hopefully.
Yeah, it's true.
Or you get frustrated, one of the two.
Right, exactly. Oh, well, I wanted to I always ask you this, but is there anything else? Is there anything else? I know there's so many things going on, but if you had a minute to say one more thing to this audience, what would you share with them?
Well, the issues are definitely, I've got a great team where we're working so hard on behalf of producers. We understand what is happening in the countryside, and I only mentioned a couple, three issues: Prop 12, labor, trade, but we are working on a number of other things for the industry, like animal health issues, for animal disease preparedness, prevention. We're seeing a lot of consolidation in the agencies, whether it's USDA, FDA, and that has impacts. And so we've been working closely with the administration on some of those things, and also the dietary guidelines, and that's something that that concerns all of us. And, you know, we've been really engaged and part of many of these conversations around what is termed as MAHA. And so, you know, the issues that we are dealing with, whether it's those line speed, you know, it just, there's so many different areas. But we are so fortunate. I'm very fortunate that I have such a great team, and they're all super hardworking and have a true passion and grounding. And so it's great. My biggest push for the team has been, I want people to be happy when they come to work. I want, because the work product shows. And so I think that for me and for our team, we're working on behalf of the industry, and hopefully we can have some wins here in the future.
Well, I think you're doing a fabulous job of leading your team. It's been fun to watch you grow in what you do at MPPC, and how your influence is just carrying over to more and more people. I know your team seems very grateful for all that you do to try to encourage them to find that work-life balance and to be able to find joy in what they do every day. And so I appreciate your leadership. And again, I am so grateful that you joined us today for the Pork Podcast. You know, again, we appreciate the support of this episode's sponsor, AP. You can dive into more of the Pork Podcast on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it anywhere podcasts are found. I'm Jennifer Scheich, finding the story behind the story.